So I'm wondering, in the 21st century, in 2020, what would you say are the biggest challenges that the LGBTQ plus community faces now?
Yeah, and that would be different sort of country by country even. Because as we learned, I was just in Dublin, just in Ireland, that gay marriage is super recent. It's just passed. It's like not, I forget exactly. I'd have to fact check myself. But it's like just a few years old. And so they held on incredibly long in terms of denying them that basic right. Now, and you will still find, even in our country, you will still find forms that still say mom and dad. I mean, we're altering forms all the time, myself and my family. So, and this might not be sort of by pure malicious intent. Like bureaucracy takes a long time to move after policy change, and then we can also look at, I mean, parts of the world where any kind of public display of affection with a same-sex person will put you in immediate threat, and that's today, and that's right now. So, I mean, we can think of ourselves as Canadians and feel lucky, or we think of ourselves as global queer citizens of the world and say we have so much work to do still. Like there are people who urgently need relocation that we should be looking into, like how can they get out of their countries if you have some spare time. Like these are the sort of things that I think, wow, spare time, these are the things I want to lend my time and my attention to. One of the challenges I think is that can sometimes, and this is something I touched on a little earlier when we were speaking about the Everett Clippert play, and what I feel like Clippert gave me is generosity as a queer person. That in response to the sometimes poor treatment that I've received in the past, I could probably become embittered at the system. I could probably, walk around with a chip on my shoulder, and sometimes I do. But I think there's also a lot of work to be done. So one of the big challenges I think is like still reaching out your hand, still looking to see who could I help, who could I make a change with, rather than doubling down on my own past pain or my own present pain, even though it still might be there. Um, recognize that. Recognize people need it and they need to articulate it. Like if there's a problem, they have the right to articulate it and say, no, this is hurting me, I'm in pain. But I guess it is reaching out beyond our immediate moment, reaching back through history, reaching into the future, and figuring out how we can keep helping one another. Um, Even though sometimes sometimes the temptation is to just dwell on the personal pain that you've experienced, and that's a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so much opportunity to be change makers, but it's just being able to understand, understand the own trauma and struggles that you've lived through and experienced and internalized, and finding a way to turn that into good. And I think that's the challenge that all of us queer people are sort of dealing with right now. But I think it's great that we have people like you who are championing so many important stories like Everett Clippert, who are inspiring students, who are inspiring people around the world through storytelling. And so my last question for today is, Natalie, what advice would you give queer creatives out there?
Ooh, I would say, I mean, you touched earlier on one of the things that is the most damaging, one of the things that can do us the most harm, and that is shame. I have a poem actually in the new collection called No Shame, because I think that if you can, um, even temporarily, maybe tomorrow you're gonna, that kind of sense of shame that culture wants to heap upon you, maybe it comes creeping back. But if you can shrug it off while you create, if you can push it away, then you will be able to go for the story you want to write. That idea of trying to write and please people, it won't ever work. So I say kind of like throw off the shame while you're writing. Write as if everybody just friggin' loves you for your queer fabulous self, because many, many, many people now do. So write as if that were the case. Write as if everybody is cheerleading you in your gender, in who you love. Write that way, and worry about it later. If there are some people who don't appreciate that fabulous self, that fabulous self, Maybe you're not writing for them. That's okay. But don't let that kind of shame or that kind of taint or whatever that thing is creep into your writing or your creative room. Like banish it.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. And also, I guess one more question, kind of in the same vein. How, what would you say to say for, if a non-queer person would want to support the queer community, how would they be able to do that?
Mm. I have been on the benefit, like the beneficiary of some amazing allies in my career. If I look back sometimes in moments where I could not take my own advice, like what I just said to you, this exorcism of shame, that I'm like kind of like, be gone, shame. I couldn't do that. I have had, cisgendered allies, directors who have taken up the mantle of a story that I've written and said to culture, this matters. Um, and because they have had ears, they have had the ear of people maybe that I didn't have. And they would take my story and they would go, hey, this is a gorgeous human story. So if you have the ear of folks that a queer person or a differently abled person or a racialized person or an indigenous person, if they don't have, then you can take that step, collaborate with them, and help them make that step. Or if you're just their friend, then be that fabulous audience for them. And I know that many of us, have that in our life, is that kind of not the performative allyship of ticking all the boxes and writing at the end of your message, all the ways, like writing your pronouns, all those things, they can't hurt. But I would say go a bit beyond that. The land recognition, the gender recognition, all those things that we're doing right now, they're not bad. I think they're well intentioned, but I guess there's above and beyond that. There's the actual giving your ear and your talent and your attention to the stories of a racialized or a queer or an indigenous person, and loving their stories and letting them know that you love their stories is probably going to be, even more important than the tag.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. This was an incredible interview. Where can people find you?
People can find me, where I teach at Mount Royal University. I'm a full professor there in the Department of English Languages and Cultures. I teach creative writing. I love that job. It's amazing. I love connecting with students in a mentor and mentee way. So that's one of the places. Online, you can find me. I have a website where I kind of house a lot of things. It's just nataliemeisner.com. I occasionally venture into social media. I'm under all my own names there. So yeah, you can find me and connect in any of those ways. Always happy to be like a mentor to queer creatives, an ear for your stories, all of those types of things. And it has been a huge pleasure, Mark, to kick these ideas back and forth with you. It's like, balm for the spirit. Really good.
Absolutely. And I can attest that Natalie is an amazing professor. And if you get a chance to take one of her classes, I say do it. So thank you so much, Natalie.